Hello, this is Rabbi Dr. Juan Marcos Berjana Gutierrez. We're continuing our track through the Apocrypha and the Pseudepigrapha as we look for Jewish perspectives on life after death. And we've come across to a collection of psalms known as the Psalms of Solomon. It's a collection of 18 psalms that was written in the first or second centuries before the Common Era. They are not part of any current scriptural canon. That is to say, they're not part of course, the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, or any of the Christian canons, whether it be the Western churches or the Eastern Orthodox churches. Copies have been found, however, in collections of the Peshitta and the Septuagint. So I think that's interesting to note. Chapter 3 provides us with our first text that we're going to be looking at. And it says, "The destruction of the sinner is forever, and he shall not be remembered when the righteous is visited. This is the portion of sinners forever, but they that fear the Lord shall rise to eternal life," or life eternal, "and their life shall be in the light of the Lord, and shall come to an end no more." So, of course, this is the first striking element that we have, and that's the rising to life eternal. And we saw that type of imagery in the book of Daniel when we were looking at biblical passages with respect to the concept of Mehaye Hametim. What does this actually mean, though? I think that on some level we might question whether this simply means the eternality of the soul. The soul continues. The soul of the wicked is punished. But we seem to have a little bit of an elaboration if we go a little bit further. So let's continue. This is actually jumps to chapter 13. It says, "For the Lord spareth his pious ones, and blotteth out their errors by his chastening. For the life of the righteous shall be forever." So again, we have an indication of some type of ongoing existence. "But sinners shall be taken away into destruction, and their memorial shall be found no more. But upon the pious is the mercy of the Lord, and upon them that fear his mercy." So verse 10, I think, is interesting because we've looked at other passages in the Tanakh that talk about the memory of the wicked being destroyed. But again, what does that mean? Does that mean some type of scenario like Gehenna or a Gehinnom, or are we simply talking about some other aspect of Sheol? And what we find is, if we continue, we'll go to the next slide. We continue here in verse 11. We actually have somewhat of a response, and it says, "The inheritance of sinners is destruction and darkness, and their iniquity shall pursue them unto Sheol beneath." So we have a reference here. "Their inheritance shall not be found of their children, for sin shall lay waste the houses of sinners, and sinners shall perish forever in the day of the Lord's judgment." Now, again, does this imply some kind of ongoing punishment? It's not clear. We may have the beginnings of the concept of Gehenna or Gehinnom, but it's not clear. Verse 14 continues, it says, "When God visiteth the earth with his judgment, but they that fear the Lord shall find mercy therein, and shall live by the compassion of their God, but sinners shall perish forever." So at this point, I think we have sort of an interesting collection of text in the Psalms of Solomon. We do have a reference to Sheol, so that seems to provide the background to some of this thinking. But at the same time, there does seem to be a little bit of influence, if you will, from the book of Daniel in this idea of the righteous coming back to life. It doesn't use the same phrase with respect to the wicked. Their future is depicted, of course, in negative terms. But I think we can start to see that we have sort of different approaches, even in the Pseudepigrapha and the Apocrypha, with respect to the question of life after death. We have, of course, the concept of Sheol that continues, that we begin to see, I think, almost a melding of these different ideas that are presented in the book of Daniel, along with other passages in the Tanakh, and I think the potentially the influence of other cultures with respect to the eternality of the soul. I think that's very interesting, and we'll continue to look at that in subsequent videos.